So I want to thank you for joining me for this altar server training video, and I'll be narrating a few aspects of it. So we'll start out in the sacristy off of the narthex from the main entrance. The first thing the servers do is find an alb that is the proper size. It should be maybe an inch above their ankles, not too high up, not lower than that, lest they trip. And so they can put the alb on, that's the white garment, vestment, and then they can put one of the cinctures on. You'll see those colored ropes, and the colors vary during the year. Just ask the pastor or deacon, and they'll let you know what the right colors are. But so they get, that's the beginning. It's good if you can get the Mass 15 minutes ahead of time so there's time to prepare. One of the things we do is vest, of course, but then the other thing we need to do is light the candles and bring the processional cross back. So our servers here will be doing that shortly. So there they came out of the side room. You'll notice one of our servers, both of them, with the lighters, and there's matches to light those candle lighters. There's 6 candles. We have 2 at the tabernacle, and that Julio is lighting, and then at the ambo we have our new server who's with us in this training video, Caleb, and so he is helping us with that, lighting at the ambo. And then of course Julio is at the altar now, so there's those 6 candles we have to remember to light, and that's why it's so important to come 15 minutes before Mass to get prepared. And now of course one of the servers remembers to bring the processional cross back, so that was over by the door leading into that side sacristy from the sanctuary. So they're going to come right to the back. We will process up the main aisle. And when the music starts, you can always look back to the pastor. He'll give the cue when to actually start processing forward. Now, when the cross bearer gets before the altar, he steps up 1 step and pauses for a split second and then veers off to the left to put the candle back in its place. The other server bows or genuflects and stays about 6 feet back from him, bows and genuflects, and then immediately goes to his kneeler. He does not wait for the lector or the pastor to be at his side. The pastor will then go up to the altar, reverence the altar, and as far as the servers are concerned, the priest will begin with the sign of the cross, the opening greeting. Maybe there'll be an extra blessing for the liturgy of the children, liturgy of the word for the children. But basically what they're waiting for now is the priest to say, "Let us pray." And that's the point where they will bring the book for the opening prayer. So notice how the server carries the book. He's carrying it upside down in relation to himself, but this way when he hands it to the pastor, it's very easy to open the book. Let the top of the book rest on the top of your chest and hold the book at the bottom with your hands. Try to make sure your fingers do not block the words as the priest prays. When the priest finishes with his prayer, he'll bring his hands together. As he's bringing his hands together from the Orion's position, you can then close the book and go back to your spot. So you as soon as you don't have to stay there, you can go a little sooner. Then we have the readings, and you're just seated at your spot till the readings are finished. Your next role will be shortly after the priest or deacon proclaims the gospel. There's the homily, there's the creed, then there's the intercessions. We're standing for, of course, the creed and the intercessions. But when they are finished, that is the time to start to prepare the altar. When in doubt, when to stand or sit, look to the congregation, and they will help you know exactly when to stand and so forth. A good cue for when to start helping the pastor prepare the altar is when the lector walks away at the end of the intercession. Both of you can go to the credence table where all the items are. Bring the book and the stand first. Notice how he's holding it upside down in relationship to himself, so it's easy for the pastor to take. Then the next item is the chalice, corporal purificator. Notice how you do not bow to the priest till he bows to you, and it's a courtesy that way. Notice how both servers tend to come together most of the time and leave together. So that's ideal if you both come together, leave together. When I bow, that means you can go back to the credence table. I'll offer the bread first. Remember to bring the bread first, not the water and the wine. First the bread, after you've, of course, brought the book and the chalice. The priest will take the wine first, have the handles towards him. It's much easier that way. He'll mix a little water with the wine. Then you go back and get ready for the washing of the hands. If there's two of you, it's much easier. If there's just one, you put a towel over one arm and then pick up the lavabo, that's the wash bowl, and the cruet. Of course, now you hold the handle of the cruet with the water because Father can't take hold of it. Wipes his hands, gives it back, nice bow, and back you go. You are pretty much, participating with them in the Mass. Please participate in the Mass with the parishioners. Pay attention. People are seeing you. So if you're looking around instead of looking at the pastor or looking at whoever's doing something at the Mass, if you're not focusing on them, it looks like you're distracted. So it's very important to be fully engaged, involved in that way. So this is the largest part of the Mass, and it's pretty simple at this point until communion time. One thing that you'll do is when you kneel for the Eucharistic prayer, one of you will need to ring the bells. And bells are rung at 3 times. One time is when the priest holds his hands over, both hands over the gifts to call down God's blessing on the bread and wine. And then you ring the bell 3 times, briefly but loudly. And so that'll be coming up shortly. Then the priest proceeds, and shortly after there will be what we call the words of consecration. And he will pick up the host, the large host, and that you should be ready now. He's going to bow slightly and speak into the host the words of consecration. After he's finished with this, he will raise the host and you ring the bell 3 times. The priest will genuflect and he will continue with the Eucharistic prayer, and eventually he'll pick up the chalice and he will bow and speak the words of consecration for the chalice. Again, when he's finished, he'll raise it, and that's the time to ring the bells. And then Mass will proceed, and you won't have a lot to do until communion time when Father is distributing communion. As Father goes back to the tabernacle to take the other hosts to combine with the ones that he just consecrated, you will take your position around the tabernacle, 1 server on one side, 1 on the other. Or if there's 3 servers, it'll be 2 on one side, 1 on the other. And you'll receive communion in that position. After you've received communion, you can wait a moment till the pastor and the Eucharistic ministers leave the altar. And at that point, you can remove the book and the stand, okay? And just remember when you remove the book and the stand, that you pick it up and put it on the credence table in such a way that it's, backwards in relationship to you. So it makes it easier when you bring the book over. Now, right now, the server didn't quite do it the right way. It should be reversed, but it's not the end of the world. But anyway, if it were the other way, it's easier for him when he picks the book up for the closing prayer. So at this time, you're kneeling and just praying in gratitude for receiving Holy Communion. And you'll be waiting for Father to come back. And when he comes back, the other Eucharistic minister will also bring their, what we call ciborium. And then, of course, things need to be purified. And we'll need the water again. So just remember, at this time when we're distributing communion, that's what you're waiting for, is the moment when you need to bring the water for the purification, and then we clear the rest of the altar. What he likes is that both of you come and you go together. So when Father hands, for example, the cruet to one of the servers, you wait till so here he's handing the ciborium and the cruet, then you walk away together. So that they did very well there, as you saw. And then one or both of you come back because there's still more to be done. He needs to fold up the corporal and the purificator, put the purificator on the chalice, the corporal on top of that, and then he will hand it. Of course, before that happens, there's sometimes we have to give communion to the homebound, and you'll notice that our young server picked up the plate that has the little pyxes in. I put the hosts in there. And after everyone takes the host, you can stand to the side and Father will pray over those that picked up the pyxes. And when the prayer is finished, and again, he stands off to the side so he's not between the priest and those he's blessing. When he's finished with the prayer, the priest goes back and you go back and put the plate where you had it. Father will then put the consecrated hosts that were not used in the tabernacle, and you can go back to your seat. At this point, there will probably be some announcements at the end, and when those announcements come after the prayer. So there'll be a moment of silence waiting for everyone just to pray a little bit after they've received Holy Communion, and then you will hear the priest say, "Let us pray." That is your cue to go and obtain the book, and there, he turned it around. Good. And he will walk up to the priest. He will take, this is called the Roman Missal, by the way. Sometimes Father will refer to it as the Roman Missal. He'll do the prayer, hold the book. If you notice the priest is looking, like bending his head up, that means the book is too high. In this video, it's the perfect height, because when the priest looks down, he doesn't want to have to bend his head up too much to read the words. So, good. So that finishes. The priest usually will do the announcements at this time. And while that's happening, you should be getting ready. One of you will take the processional cross and be prepared for the procession out. Sometimes we'll have a guest speaker, like we had Scott Pierce, who is our deacon candidate, and sometimes typically that's the last announcement. So if we have a speaker, and then when that's finished, shortly after that, Father will invite everyone to stand for the final blessing. And when that happens, you'll stand with the people, of course. And after the blessing, of course, you make the sign of the cross with the people. And he'll start singing the closing hymn. At any point, you can go and pick up the processional cross. And if you want to pick it up, you can return to your chair or stay by the stand that held the processional cross. But either way, that will be your next. Now, you'll notice you go down first with the processional cross, and then the other server should follow. The one with the processional cross should go down about 3 pews down and then turn and face the altar and the priest. The other server is like maybe a pew or 2 away from the person, in front of the person with the cross. And then the lector comes in and the pastor comes down, and you're all facing the altar in a single line, but you're facing in the opposite direction from which you'll process. That's the way it works. When Father genuflects, and if you're not carrying the processional cross, you can genuflect too. And then at that point, the priest will turn, and you all turn together, and this is important for the cross bearer to remember, and then you process out. You're not going too fast, you're not going too slow, just a nice dignified procession. So that's pretty much the Mass and how to serve. So watch the video, and hopefully my narration helped. I want to thank Martin Jensen, who did the videotaping and editing of this. I'm sure I could have done a better job, but this is a nice overview for you. And at the end of the Mass, you should also be ready for Father to just talk to you. Most of the time, he'll just thank you. Sometimes you'll have a few pointers where you could have done something a little different. Never take that as a criticism. It's just that Father many times doesn't have a whole lot of time because he has to greet the people at the end. He want to just quickly tell you, you did this well, work on this a little bit. But he just does that so that you become perfect servers in a short time. But again, I'm so grateful that you're servers. I'm so grateful you took time to watch this video. I hope it helps you. If you have any questions, please share them with me, and I will try to answer them. Thank you again for your service at the altar, and thank you, Martin Jensen, for putting this together. God bless you all.